So welcome to episode 9 in this series where we're building a Flow application using Supabase as the back end. We're building a goals tracking app, and this is episode 9. And in this particular episode, we are going to continue our UI building, and we're going to start focusing on actually updating the tasks within inside our application. So without further ado, let's get cracking. Okay, so we're not quite done with our UI changes just yet because we can now create tasks, but of course we're going to want to update them as well. So what would happen is in the running application, we'll just hold down on the actual task itself. The update task bottom bar will then display the component, and of course we can make these changes and hit the update. And once we do the update, then the actual task behind the scenes will then refresh. Now we're going to make some changes just like what we did before. I'm going to take the kind of another component, I'm going to make a copy of it, rename it, and let's walk through that together, and I can show you the changes that we've done in order to get us ready for us to start adding the logic in to then apply those particular changes. So let's do that now. So then back with inside the widget tree, you can see here on the left hand side we've got this update a task component. So all I simply did was I just right clicked on the create task component, duplicated it, and then called it update task component. So let's have a look at that now. Now what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to make some changes to this, of course, because the behavior is going to be slightly different, because instead of us passing a goal ID actually into this particular task, we're going to need to pass the task in order for us to update it. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to want to do is, and once you've kind of renamed all of these fields, so just have a quick look at this now, you can see that everything is as it was before. We just need to rename all of the fields, and remember to do the form as well if you haven't done that. So just select that, and then on the right hand side just make sure that both task title and then task description are ticked. So just make sure you do that, but everything else should be as you had seen it previously, but just with those changes. I've removed all of the actions out of the button update task as well, because we'll walk through that together in just a moment. But up the very top here, we're going to want to make a change. We want to remove the component parameter that was actually up there. So you remember it was passing the goal ID, so just simply remove it. But we're going to want to make a change, because instead of passing that goal ID in, as I said, we want to pass the Supabase row in that represents the actual task. So just choose add parameter, and we're just going to call this parameter row task, like that, and then the type is going to be then a Supabase row, so just choose a Supabase row there, and then the table name of course will be then the actual task itself. So that's all that we need to do. So once we've then got our row task, we can then do some further binding now on the UI, because we're going to want to put the title and the description actually into these fields. So we can do that really easily in Flow. So just choose the task title there, and then down here we just want to set the initial value. So if you just make sure you select that, we're going to want to choose the actual row task itself. So just choose a row task, and then within inside the Supabase row field, we're going to want to choose title, and then we just want to hit confirm, and we just need to do the same for this as well. So choose task description, go down to the selector, go to the row task itself, choose a Supabase field as the description, and then just hit confirm. So we know that as soon as we then load this up, we're going to pass in the row, and then we're going to see the details that we need within inside here. And of course we now need to move on to the update task piece. We're going to want to update that row, so let's walk through that now. So just with that button update task selected, just choose the open of the action flow editor, and of course, just as we did before, we're going to want to validate the form first. So just hit add action, just go up here and type in val, and then you can see you've got a validate form. Just select the actual form itself, so that just enforces it, and of course hit the little plus, hit add action, and this is where we need to do the magic bit, and then go to Supabase here, and we're going to want to update the actual row. So choose update row, and then in the table it's going to be the actual task itself. On the matching rows, choose add filter, and then the field name is going to be the actual ID itself. So this is the ID of the row, and the relation is going to be equal to, and then the value will be then the row task, and it will be the Supabase row field, which will actually be the ID. So that will just make sure then that it knows that the changes that we're making will be to that particular row. Just hit confirm, and then we have a matching row set. Now, of course, the set fields was very simply just as we did before. We just need to say add field, choose the right fields that we need. So it's going to be the title, and of course that's going to come from the actual widget state itself. Just scroll down and choose the task title. We're just going to minimize that there, and then go to add field. We're going to choose that. that there, the ID, and just change that then to description. And then on the actual value itself, we're just going to move down to the widget state, and we're going to choose the task description. So that should be our 2 fields that is now going to be set up. That's actually all that we need to do now. So finally, we're just going to then do what we did before. We're just going to close out the actual row itself. So let's just, the actual bottom bar, just hit close here. And then we're going to choose the close dialog drawer, and that's all that we need to do. So that should be all set up for us to then hook that up to the actual UI to then actually then display the actual task. So let's now move on to that stage of the project now, where we're going to start hooking up all of these components that we created, and then hopefully we can then fire up the application, and hopefully if we haven't made any errors, the application will be up and running. But let's do that now. Okay, so in order for us to create a goal actually on our page, we now need to add the fab button in, just as we've got on the goals page. So let's go to the home page. That is the goals page. Let's go down to the bottom here and choose a floating action button. Let's just right click on that and say copy, and then we can go to the task page here, and then we can right click on the task page just here, and then hit the little P option there to paste that in. So you can see that now nicely at the bottom. Now we need to select the actual action here, because we're going to need to now hook that in to actually show then the actual bottom bar that we need. At the moment, we've also pasted across the actual action from our goals page, so we don't really want to actually set that. So let's go to the action itself. So hit on the little action option, open up the action flow editor, and we're going to want to change the properties of this. So instead of the actual create goal component, we now need to make a change to actually say, you know something, let's choose the let's choose the create task component there. Now the height probably isn't quite right, so we probably need to make some adjustments to the height, because we know that the create task component is not so high in its height. So I'm going to make a bit of a guess here, and I'm going to say 370, but we might want to come back and we might want to make that particular change. Now, as we do know that we're going to also want to pass in the actual goal ID actually into the create task component, of course, because we're going to need to tell everything inside of that what the goal ID that we're creating a task against. So that's quite simple to do. So just where it's got the actual pass here, we need to select that. So we need to choose the actual parameter here, so choose goal ID, and we need to set a value here. So just choose the value, and you can see here that our page parameter is the goal ID. So just choose that, and we know that we've got the 2 hooked up there. So we know now, of course, that what will happen is our bottom sheet bar will be displayed, and the action will actually pause at that particular point. Now, it's not until that bottom sheet then disappears from the UI that the actions will then continue with inside this particular section here. So what we can now do is we can now call call out to the database and actually do that refresh of the database. So just hit the little plus here, hit the add action, and we're just going to do a search for refresh, and we're going to refresh the database request, and on the widget we're just going to choose the list view, and that's all that we need to do. And that will quite simply mean that as soon as that bottom bar disappears, the actual task will then be refreshed with inside the list view. So we'll know that we'll create it and it will then get displayed. So that's all that we need to do there. So now, of course, we now need to do the update itself. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to add it to this particular container here. Okay, so just select that, and then we're going to go up to the actions up here, and we're going to open up the action flow editor. And what we're going to do the on long press. Okay, so just choose on long press there, and we're going to add an action. And of course, what we're going to do here is we're going to open up the bottom sheet again. So let's just choose the bottom sheet here, and we're going to show it here. And the height again, we know, well, I'm going to guess it's at 370 again for the actual update, but we might want to come in and just change the height of that, of course. All of the other details there are pretty good. We just need to select the component, of course, and we're going to choose the update task component. And of course, what we now need to do is we now need to pass the Supabase row actually into that particular component. So put the little pass here where it says row task, just select that. We're going to just choose the little selector there, and of course we're going to go to the task row itself, and we're going to choose the Supabase row and hit confirm, and that's all that can be expected. Now, we could have done this in a slightly different way. What we could have done is we could have passed in the actual task ID, and then we could have then actually then done a query with inside the actual bottom bar component to then go to the Supabase, pull out that particular row based on the ID, and then we have it there in memory, and then of course we can then bind that that particular row details to then each of those widgets. But actually moving the row around to the bottom bar is a very, very convenient way of getting all of the records that we actually need, because we got it at that particular time, instead of having to do that re-query again. So yeah, that's just the reason why I've done it in this particular way. So just a bit of helpful information there. So that's pretty well much everything I think that we need to set there. I don't think there's any other details that we need, so that's all pretty good. So let's just close that. And of course, once, in fact, I keep saying close, but I don't need to close it, because we need to actually also add another action in here as well. And of course, once the update has occurred, then we're going to need to do that database refresh as well. So just hit the little plus here, hit action, and let's hit the refresh database request and just choose the list view. There we go. So that will mean that the database will then get we'll get a requery, and then we'll see the update of the task within inside that particular screen. Now we can hit the close buttons. Let's hit the close, and we are good. So now we're super close now to getting this actually fired up, but of course we are still have a slight problem in that actually when we actually fire this up, we're going to see the goals page, but we're not going to be able to navigate to the actual goals task page. Okay, so we're going to need to sort of link the two screens together. So we can do that really easily. And if we go back to the actual home page, okay, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to move down to the goals container, and we're going to want to then bring up the action flow header to open. Now, of course, as you know, we've already got a long press here in order to actually update the goal, but we're going to want to actually select the on tap. So as soon as we actually tap it, we're then going to want to then navigate to the actual task screen. Okay, so hit the add action here, and we just want to choose the navigate to, and we're going to choose the task page. Now that task page is going to require a parameter, so we're going to have to set that here. So just where it says pass, just choose pass, and it's going to be a goal ID that we need to pass across. So just choose goal ID, and we need to choose a selector here, and we're going to choose the goals row, and of course the goal has an ID itself, so just choose ID, and then we're going to then be able to pass that through to that screen. Now on the actual transition type, we now need to change that to actual slide left. Okay, and then with the duration, just set that as 200, and we don't want to allow any back navigation, so just turn that off. So you'll see the reason to why that is going to be important actually as the application develops. So what we're going to do is we're going to be navigating without the ability to go back into the actual task page. We're going to then make the necessary changes here, and then when we actually then navigate back to the actual goals page itself, then we're going to be literally navigating back, not going back. Okay, so we can ensure that when we go back, that there's a database refresh that occurs on that particular page. So it's just like we've gone to the page for the very first time, and everything then gets refreshed for us, and we'll then see the results. So that should be all that we need to do here. So just hit the actual close option. That's it. Of course, I think there's probably one more thing we need to do actually on the task page here. Let me just check here on the actual icon button. Yeah, we are going back there. I just want to make sure that I implemented that before we run it up. So I think we are in a good position. Let's try firing this up. I don't know if we're going to have any problems because we've done a lot in this particular video here, of course. So let's try and let's see what happens. And if there's any issues, we can come back and correct them. Okay, so here we are in run mode. Let's give this a go then. Let's just choose one of our goals here. That's a good start. We've got the goals page that's actually displayed. Let's just see if we can go back. Yeah, that's looking good. So that's working for us. Let's try creating a new task. Let's just type here test task. Let's type in some details here and hit the create task. Oh, okay, so it looks like we've got a problem. Something's not working for us. So let's have a little check. I normally press about F12 in the browser here, and let's see what error is coming up. So always make sure console's selected. Let's have a look and see what's coming back. So it looks like we've got a security problem. So my thought process is when I'm kind of looking at these errors is I will always think about what is actually happening at that particular time. Now we're clearly trying to create something in the database at this point, and we're getting kind of like an error coming back. So it's likely that actually here with being a violation with the security is obviously something related to the actual user itself. So it's likely that we've missed adding something into the actual update request. So that looks like that's the problem here. Let's just go to the network here. Let's just double check. Let's just hit that little create task as well. Let's see what's going across here. So we've got that 403. Yeah, okay, so it looks like we've got definitely something to do with perhaps the user. So let's go back to the application. Let's have a look here. So let's go back to the create task component and let's see what we're missing. Go to create task because that's where we know that the problem is. Let's have a look here. We know the validate form is passed. That's good. So we must be breaking in here. So let's have a look here. So we've got all of our details here. Right. Okay. So the reason why this is not working by the looks of it is because it knows nothing about the user that I'm actually that's actually creating the task. So it looks like I've missed out adding the user ID actually in with the field here. So let's do that now. Let's add the field in. Let's select the user ID here. Just choose user ID. And then of course the value of the user ID will come from the authenticated user. So just choose authenticated user and then let's choose the user ID itself. So we know that we need to apply that to our database table. That should be good for us. So let's go back then to the actual run mode itself. Let's give this another while. Let's just close that down. Let's just do an instant reload. So here we go. Let's try this again. Let's just click on that particular goal. Let's hit the little plus here. Let's try creating the task. So just going to say test title. Just put some gobbledygook in there. Hit create task. Bingo, excellent. So that definitely was the problem. It's definitely to do with the user ID, and we can see that we've got our task here. So let's just try hitting this little option here. So we know we've still got to set the details up for that. Okay, so we've missed that, and that is something that was quite obvious to me that we've missed. So we need to do that. Let's just try deleting. Okay, that's good. So that's working for us. Delete's working okay. Let's just add that task in again. Test task. Create the actual task itself. Let's try holding and doing a long update there. Excellent. So that's looking good. We've got the rows being passed into our component, so that all of our details are coming up. Let's just try making a change. I'm going to just put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in there. Hit update. Okay, that looks good. So let's just hold down again. And then brilliant, the details are all being persisted. So everything is looking really good for our update. So that's working great for us. But just clearly there's just a little bit of functionality we're now missing in order for us to make this actually now complete. So let's go and fix the application and let's get all those changes done. So by the way, well done if you've been following along and you've got to this stage so far. It's all part of the kind of the creation experience where you'll find that you'll run through things and then you'll test it and there's a problem and you need to go back to it. It's common, it happens all the time, so don't worry about it. So let's now fix up our application. I think we've done really well at this point. So let's focus then on these two options here. This is what I've missed previously. We've got actions behind these, of course. We're gonna let's work on this one first. Okay, so this is when a task is not completed. What we're going to need to do is we need to make a call out to Supabase and then mark that particular task as complete, and that's done really easily. Just select the actual icon itself. Let's go up to the actions. Let's load up the action flow editor and then let's add the action in, and we're going to add this backend call in here. So let's just choose Supabase here and we're going to update the actual row itself. We're going to select the table, which we know is going to be the task, and we're going to want to choose this matching row. Okay, so we're just going to need to make sure that we're only updating the task that we've got selected. So just choose the add filter, go into the field name here, choose ID, and the relation is going to be equal to, and then the value of that will be the actual task row. Okay, so that's the row specifically that we've selected. So just choose ID. So we know we've got a match here. We know we got our row. So what are we going to do? Well, we need to mark this as complete. Okay, so just choose add field, select this, go to the field itself, choose the complete, and then the value is going to be then true. And you guessed it, what we're going to need to do is we need to take this and then we're going to then apply this literally as a copy and then a paste into the other icon just to do kind of the reverse. We're going to turn a complete task into an incomplete task, and that's by setting this as false. So that's good. So we'll come back to that in just a second. We just want to do one other thing here. Of course, we're going to want to then do a refresh on the actual database itself. So just choose add action, just type in a refresh here, refresh database request, and we're just going to choose the list view. So that should be all good for us. So what I'm going to do here is I'm now going to copy these and then paste these into the other action. Okay, so let's just select that one up here, select a copy action chain, which will just copy all of these actions. Of course, if I just set a copy action, it will just do the single one. So copy the whole action chain and then just close that down there. And we're going to want to go into this one here, this icon here, go back to the actions, open up the action flow editor, and then we can just select this option up here. Because we know that we got an action in our clipboard, we can choose a paste action and just say paste, and then it's all there for us. We just need to go back into this update, and of course we're just going to go down here and we're going to do the reverse, which is going to be false. And that's all that we need to do. So let's go back to the application. Let's try this now. Let's make sure this works for us. So here we are back in the run mode. Let's just choose this particular set here. We can see this here. Let's just select that. Brilliant. So there we go. So it must be now marked as complete in the database. And we can do a little check in Supabase here. Let's just go to the task itself. Let's just do a refresh, and we can see that that one is set as true. If I go back into test mode, let's just sort of mark that as complete, go back into Supabase, and you can see that it's now made it as false. So okay, so everything is working brilliantly within inside our database. So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this particular episode. If you've followed along and you've got these results up and running, then well done to you, because there is a lot going on with inside this particular series. And of course, this particular episode, there was a lot more sort of UI work as well. But it's certainly completing the features of our application. And in the next episode, we're going to then focus on even more enhancements as well, just to add a few more bells and whistles into the actual application as well. So please, as always, if you do love watching these series, please do like the video, and of course please do subscribe to the channel as well. These are tutorials that hopefully you will learn a lot from as your journey sort of either begins or you're in progress of in learning Flow. And in particular Supabase as well. We've got a really important episode coming up very soon, which will talk about some additions to Supabase at the back end, which will really provide you some options to empower your applications. So please do watch out for that particular episode, because it's a really, really interesting one. So yeah, so until the next one, guys, thanks very much for joining me, and I'll see you soon.